Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to yet another episode of Rendezvous with Anza Saqib on CxO Global TV. CxO Global Forum is a knowledge-sharing platform for all C-levels and key thought leaders across the globe. We take massive pride in contributing to the knowledge economy. And every week on this show, we've got a very special guest who's our member, who's not only a domain expert, but also is making a considerable amount of difference in the field that they're working in. I get really happy when we are interviewing our female members because it's inspiring to see all the women in Pakistan who've made their mark in the corporate industry. Today, we've got a very special guest with us, Amna Khatib Paracha, who's the Chief Digital Officer at GroupM. Amna, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me over here. I'm really excited for this. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we had a couple of technical issues in the beginning, and we're glad that we finally have you and have had a chance to speak with you. Amna, so, the Chief Digital Officer, now that carries a lot of weight, but usually it's a title that people associate with men, not women, right? Because, they usually assume that fine, a woman can be a CEO or maybe a CMO, but very seldom do they talk about women being chief digital officers. So how has the journey been so far? Where did you begin? And what brought you here?
So I actually began my journey almost 20 years ago, but I've always been in the media industry. I started a year at Interflow. That's when I was still in college. Then I joined Mindshare. I was there for like good 8 years. I moved around after that to McCann, to Park MediaCom, which is now on a Starcom. And then I ended up being in a company called Converge. That's when I sort of changed my industry from being the traditional media to digital media. I was with Converge for a good 3 years, and then GroupM was starting off their digital offering, and they asked me to come back, and I've been here since 2014. So I think to your question on being a female in this position, I think I've been lucky in working in places where I did not feel the gender bias, or it did not really exist the way it does exist in most of the corporations and most of the companies. So I think I was lucky that way. But I did have my fair share in terms of you feel that you have to put a little bit more effort, because there's certain things which your male counterparts can do, networking hogi, or spending time after office or whatever. So that sort of building of a relationship. So yeah, but I think I've been very lucky in working in good places that have helped me. And I never had this thing in my mind, which is something very important I teach my daughters also, that there's nothing that you can't do. So don't even think in your head that you can't. Just think that you can, and then you can do all of those things. So that's how I'll say I got here, and it's been an interesting journey so far.
Right. So being the Chief Digital Officer, what all does it entail? Because we have heard of GroupM. Everyone has heard of GroupM in Pakistan, at least, and it's a big, big name. We know you're into media buying and a lot of making life very, very easy for a lot of big corporations and brands. So what all does it entail, the job?
Yeah. So my role has evolved from the time that I started 2014, when I actually set up the digital company for GroupM. And over the time, we see how digital is evolving. The need and the requirement and what is, let's say, the scope of the work that is coming out for digital for clients is an ever evolving thing. When we did start up in 2014, we actually had a very difficult task of convincing clients that they need to be on digital. So, it's interesting that everybody talks about digital right now, but back then we had to convince clients that why is digital important? What is digital? How does it benefit you? Moving on, setting up the right team, capability development, getting the right partners. So it's been a journey. And that is, I think, the most important or most interesting part of my job, is that it's been an evolving journey. Every year is different from the previous year. Every future year, we're looking forward to something new. So what my job exactly entails is that I am the custodian of how do my clients take digital forward? How do we digitize them? How do we give them the right offerings in terms of, be it the right partnerships or the right products or be the right platforms that we bring for them. So GroupM has been very instrumental in bringing lots of partnerships into Pakistan, which did not exist earlier. So that is something that we're very proud of. So for example, mobile ad networks did not exist in Pakistan. And we recognize that Pakistan is a mobile first market. And this I'm talking about 2015, 2016. And we actually went out, being part of a network, it really helps. So I was in Singapore and we met a few of the ad network representatives over there, and we told them and we convinced them what is the potential in Pakistan. So they said, TK, what we'll do is that we'll connect with you and we'll see what sort of business is happening and how can we service Pakistan teams. So that is how we brought them over. A few of trigger based advertising, for example, was something now it's happening quite a lot, but when it started off, we had to do the convincing part to our counterparts in other markets, saying that there's a potential in Pakistan. So that has been one of my most interesting part, that there's so much of work that can be done, so much of shaping up the industry, as we say, it can be done. And that sort of gives me that, the high that whatever we're doing or whoever we reach out to or what sort of solutions we bring to Pakistan eventually become big, big things.
Absolutely. You have played an instrumental life in becoming game changers. But when we talk about this new evolving bracket of digital marketing, we also, a lot of businesses still are contemplating whether they should let go of conventional marketing altogether. And now, being at GroupM, you've seen the broader picture as well. Do you think that digital marketing is going to take over, conventional TV or radio ads or print ads in the long run?
Okay, so this is a conversation that we keep on having. So for Pakistan, there's a long way to go for digital to take over TV, for sure. TV has a huge reach, probably reaches 90% plus of Pakistan audience. Digital still reaches 30-40% of total Pakistan audience. But interestingly, print and radio is something where digital has taken over. So I think the growth of digital is faster than any other medium. But for Pakistan, there is still time that we take digital TV over, as in digital takes TV over. But what is interesting to see is that how do we sort of plan it out in conjunction? We know that we are, multi-screen viewers or dual platform viewers at the same time. If you're sitting in front of a TV, you have your mobile phone in your hand. How do we plan in conjunction? So that is what is the interesting part right now. It'll take some time for digital to actually, the digital spends or budgets or digital reach to take over TV, but the smaller mediums like radio and print are sort of facing that digital is sort of going ahead for these platforms at least.
Absolutely, and I couldn't agree more. What's really interesting these days, and especially with digital ads and digital media, is that post-pandemic, we have realized their importance. And a lot of businesses who went for digital transformation had to sell their products online. And a big component of that was digital marketing. But another buzzword that we've seen these days and a phenomena is influencer marketing. What exactly is your take on influencer marketing?
Okay, so interestingly enough, we're this year about to launch a very robust sort of a tool. So influencer marketing in Pakistan is really picking up pace, right? So we see a lot of big influencers. We see that brands are working with influencers, but the science behind which influencers actually giving you what sort of reach, and is that reach eventually translating into your sales? That is the eventual goal of advertising. That is not being evaluated, cannot be evaluated, because right now it's more of a gut feel that, this influencer has this sort of following, and that is how business is being done. But influencer marketing moving forward has to be with some science, which means that there has to be some sort of justification of which influencer gets you what sort of engagement, what sort of returns come from that influencer. So that is something that we are moving towards as an industry. There are a few tools that we see that are out there. I haven't worked on them as yet, but there are a few tools that GroupM is also bringing up. Those I have sort of seen. So the future for influencer marketing will become even more, let's say, specific, more calculated. That is where we're heading towards. But another thing is we need to differentiate between an influencer and a blogger. I think there are very less influencers in Pakistan, many bloggers in Pakistan. An influencer is a person who has his own personality being added to the brand, his own, the adding something on of their own self. Blogging is just putting the news that is coming and putting it forward. Right now we have more of bloggers. So we need to see how do we move towards influencer, creating the right influencers also.
Right. But sometimes what happens is that we've seen that these influencers also use their power to, somehow prioritize one brand over the other, or maybe have their own personal biases as well. And sometimes that really does dictate consumer behavior and buying patterns. How do you control the narrative? So, for example, if you are building a narrative for a brand and some negative news comes out or someone's trying to do some propaganda, how do you manage the reputation then?
Multiple ways, depending on what the news is, who is the brand, how are we managing their crisis management. We also do social listening, which sort of preempts that if there's some news that is about to come out, we get to know, or we get to sense that, a certain topic for a certain brand is about to become a bigger issue. The ideal way to put the right narrative is we need to find, so this is being recorded, right? Can I just say something? So my domain is not influencer marketing. So I'm going into this conversation, but actually somebody else manages completely over here. So
Yeah.
Can you edit this? Of course, I don't mind
Sure.
giving you the answer, but I don't really look after influencer marketing here.
Sure. So just give me a second. Hold on for a second, and I'll try and mark this on the timestamps. Just give me a second.
Yeah.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah. So I was saying I don't mind doing it again if you think that will work better that way.
The question
or
the whole interview?
Whatever you
No,
feel.
I think it's fine this way as well.
Okay.
It's fine.
Okay.
Right. So I'm just going to, you spoke about the influencers, that's fine, but I'm going to skip the question on brand management and, take it from there. How does that sound?
Yeah, okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. All right. So thank you for sharing that interesting insight. But let's talk a little more about digital. So what's up and coming? We know about Google, Facebook adverts and everything, but are we expecting anything new to happen this year or in the years to come?
So like you just mentioned a little while earlier, that e-commerce is something that has really become the need of the hour. So it's not, a choice anymore, it's the need of the hour. So we see lots of interesting things coming up in the e-commerce sphere. So from marketplaces and marketplaces expanding their horizon of what sort of services they're offering, how are they bettering their last mile delivery, how are they making the consumer experience even better. We're also seeing that a lot of partners and companies are opening up their e-commerce ecosystem offerings. So like, for example, if a client wants to go on e-commerce, the technology behind it, the warehousing, delivery, all of the elements that actually we don't see in the forefront, but which all are in the background to make the whole process work out. So we see lots and lots of expansion happening in the e-commerce sphere. Now, e-commerce is also very diverse, let's say, category or offering. Affiliate marketing is something that is stepping up in Pakistan and starting to become big in Pakistan. Affiliate marketing, we really haven't explored. I think in Pakistan, it's a new phenomenon. It will pick up very well. So e-commerce, I would say, and then eventually, of course, we understand that everything boils down to ROAS or ROI. So how are we giving the right performance indicators, and how are we actually getting the right transactions happening? So this is where we're heading. There are lots of interesting content pieces coming up. OTT as platforms are coming up. Addressable TV is coming up. But if realistically the next big thing, or where maybe not the next, the thing that we're in actually right now, is how do we maximize e-commerce, and how do we actually get the right brands the way they need to be on e-commerce with the right positioning and the whole customer journey. This is what is very important and the need of the hour right now.
Absolutely. And it's interesting you mentioned customer journey, because there's a lot of talk around the word experience as well. So whether that's your customer experience, whether or not when they're clicking an ad, we see a lot of new innovative ways of ad campaigns these days, whether it's like sometimes it involves some sort of gamification as well.
Sure.
When it comes to those ads. And do you think there's potential?
So potential in gamification specifically?
Yeah.
Yeah, because the thing is that, so gamification is another way of making that ad resonate with that audience. So as we moving forward, data and precision marketing or precise personalization is something which is very, very important, because you can't have one ad targeting all. So gamification is a way of personalizing. If I'm interested in a certain type of content, if I'm interested in certain type of media consumption that I'm doing, how does that ad become, being placed into that? So yeah, be it gamification, be it, content, created content, all of this is how we move into the next step of giving a personalized message to, selected audiences.
Right, absolutely. And you mentioned data here as well. And we know that digital marketing revolves a lot around data and insights in particular. How can this help businesses grow?
Data is something which is extremely important. We keep on hearing about data and we don't know exactly how to work around data. But like I tell my clients, that don't think of big data and the big theories about data. Start small. See what sort of data you're collecting yourself firstly. We all know that we are eventually going to move towards cookieless data or cookieless environment. How do advertisers then target the right audiences? So the easiest thing to do is start collecting your first party data, which means people who are either coming on your website or are your customers, or you take their data through your call centers or your branches or retail outlet, whatever.
Feedback forms and so on and so
forth.
Right?
Exactly. That is the easiest, let's say if we categorize data, maybe the best quality data that is available. But what we see is that most of the people's, be it different categories, we sort of see across categories, be it banks or retail or FMCGs, they're not really capitalizing on that. So that is the first level data that we need to sort of get into. And like I said, cookieless data or cookieless environment is coming ahead. To be prepared for that, after first party, we need to get second party, which means that we need to have the right partnerships in place, which help us get the data that we need to sort of start targeting our audiences. Third party cookie, comes after that. But the idea is that when we do collect this data, how are we utilizing it? Although it's not something which
absolutely. Then that in itself is a challenge sometimes, right? Because a lot of businesses don't know what to do with the kind of data that they gather.
Although it's not something which is very new, that you take first party data, you create custom audiences, and you give out messaging of that sort, but it is still not done in most of the campaigns or most of the brands. That how do you actually, so when you have a set of data, that this set of data consume brand A, it's logical that how do you upsell them to another product, how do you sort of remarket them for the next round of the buying cycle. But we still see that is not being done, which I feel is like something should be like a hygiene factor on with every brand.
Right, absolutely. Amna, when we do talk about customers in particular and having that customer-centric approach, a lot of customers often are concerned, especially with the younger audiences, because when you people are handling digital marketing, or when we talk about everything that's digital, the onus is not just on your client, but also on you, on sort of bringing about the right responsible narrative. How difficult can that be, balancing the aspect of keeping your customer happy, but also being responsible towards the audiences?
So when we say responsible towards the audiences in terms of what sort of content we show them?
Yes, absolutely.
So primarily we don't, so GroupM does not create content in terms of your regular campaigns. We work on the media side of the angle. We do create content in terms of big formats, long format content. Yeah. But most of the clients that we work with, and then Google and Facebook also have their policies. And eventually what happens is that with everybody's policies together, things come out right. But we have to be in terms of understanding the audience becomes the first step. So who is the audience? What are the behavioral aspects to that? What sort of content are they consuming? What they want to consume? All of this actually churns out the right piece of content. Our focus or our role is more on guiding or working with the creative agencies on what sort of content it should be. We're not the primary custodians for content, right? So our role is a little limited because our role comes really basically after that, when we have content created, then what sort of media placements. So it's not our primary role, but I think with digital partners that we work with all the international partners, with all the guidelines that we get and all the trainings that we have available, we sort of, get it right or get help with work with our partners to get it right.
Right. Amna, so what is the best piece of advice that you ever received?
The best piece of advice that I ever received, well, there were two actually. Okay. One is more on career planning, thinking corporate life. What I received on that was that, you should be focusing on yourself. So you are your own competition. Okay, so don't worry about what everybody else is doing. You need to be like focused, see where you are, how do you sort of get to the next thing. So that is something which is very important for our younger generation, I feel, because they're very, very much into comparison themselves with, what everybody else is doing. So that I thought, which I learned later, there's something you are your own competition. My second piece of advice I got, which I really follow, is that you have to enjoy the work that you're doing. So find the right pieces of opportunities which interest you, because your heart and soul needs to be in what you do. So I'm glad that you and me have the option of choosing what we like to do. Some situations we don't have the option, but when you have the option, choose what you like to do, choose what you're passionate about. That gets you sort of out of bed every morning.
Right. Absolutely. And, this is very good advice on a more general level, but let's talk a little more specific. And what about all those young people that want to enter the digital marketing, digital media space? Is there potential for their work in the future, or, is there something else that they should be focusing on in terms of career planning?
I think the only industry which is evolving the most with the most number of things possible is digital. Because when I got into digital to now, the positions that get advertised, they didn't even exist, let's say, a few years ago. So the evolving industry in terms of opportunities is this industry. So this is what I tell everybody, that you need to pick and choose what you want to do. So the thing is that your initial interest has to be there. So don't get into digital because the whole world is getting into digital. Get into digital because it interests you. So there has to be that first level of want to get into this. Then you see what is your specific specialization that you want to do. Don't be a generalist. Either get into performance or get into programmatic or get into content, but then get into something which is let's say a speciality, not a general
skill that you can pick up.
Exactly. But so don't get into digital because your friends are getting into it. That's my first advice. Get into it if you really want to, if you have that feel for it. But I think for younger people also, they don't understand it till they don't do it. I think that is why internships are important. That's why getting into projects is important. So you get a feel of what do you actually enjoy. And if you're lucky, that'll be the first thing you get into, but I think that's how it should be.
Great. Amazing. So Amna, just a little bit about your personal life, and we're running a little short on time here as well. But what do you do when you're not at work? What interests you then?
So I have two daughters, and both of them are 10 and 16, and both of them are entrepreneurs themselves. Apart from school, apart from school, they have their mini businesses running, which I help them with, and like serious businesses. One has a creative development, she does canvas bags, she does, canvas art, and then she's also in the food business. Yeah, so they take up a lot of my time. But if and there's schooling and this and that, so when I'm out of office, it's like the home life and being the mother and all of that. But otherwise, I don't want to do anything when I go home. I just want to relax.
No, that's very
So,
interesting. And mashallah, it's so inspiring to see that, women like yourself are balancing the work and home in a phenomenal way. So, hats off to you. Amna, thank you so much for your time. And
thank you.
upon an end note, I'd like to ask you, what is your take on forums like CxO Global, and how have they added to your personal or professional development?
So I was extremely happy when last year I got to know about the platform, and then when I joined in, and I wasn't very sure that how will this help me. So I'll tell you what. So when most of my networking is with people who are from my industry, like media industry
Right.
or brand industry or marketing industry. But when I came on the CxO Global forum and I started to meet different people, although they're all from, let's say, technology background, but very varied and diversified industries. So that is something I really enjoyed. The other thing I enjoyed was that it's a group of very highly intelligent and skilled people. So the learning that I get from them, what is happening in Pakistan, what's happening in the world, their point of view on it, networking has been really well. The business opportunities have also come out. I've learned a lot from other people, how other people or how other industries are working. We have applied those learnings into what I do. Strong partnerships come out. I've reached out to people. Yeah, and I've reached out to people to see how can we work together. How can we make some products that which totally two unrelated industries are working together, and how to sort of create that affinities. And also, it's been a really interesting platform for me. Usually, most of my WhatsApp groups are on mute, but this one isn't. So.
Great. So thank you so much for the kind words, and thank you so much for your time. And we hope to hear more from you in the future and keep contributing to our knowledge.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for watching. Stay tuned for another episode next time with another very special guest. We look forward to your comments and feedback. Up until next time, see you.